Let's go Broncos! The atmosphere is heating up behind the scenes for the Denver Broncos, and I have some crucial details to share with you. We all know the ultimate goal is to get to the Super Bowl, and Sean Payton needs the perfect roster to make that happen. But before I dive in, make sure you hit that like button if you're a true Denver Broncos fan, especially if you've been supporting this team for more than 20 years. It's amazing to see fans of all ages bleeding orange and blue, so if you're with me, drop a comment saying, "Go Broncos!" My heart bleeds orange and blue. Now, straight to business, what's happening with the Broncos roster is generating a lot of buzz, and for good reason. We're entering that crucial phase where decisions on the 53-man roster are being scrutinized, and while everyone loves to talk about the big names, the real intrigue lies in the surprising omissions and what they mean for this team's immediate future. For example, take the quarterback situation around the league. It's been a talking point everywhere, and while this is not about the Broncos' own QBs being in doubt, it's worth noting how other teams are maneuvering their depth charts. The Broncos have to be careful with their own roster because one misstep with depth in critical positions, especially when injuries start piling up mid-season, could cost us dearly. Payton knows this, and the decisions being made now are calculated moves for long-term success. On the defensive side of things, linebacker depth across the league is creating opportunities, and the Broncos' own situation mirrors this. Younger, faster players are starting to push veterans out of the equation in several teams, and that trend could influence Denver's own decisions. Coaches are looking for players who can contribute immediately on special teams while developing into full-time starters later in the season. That's the kind of strategy Payton has been known for. He loves players who can do a little bit of everything, and that could mean some recognizable names might not survive final cuts. Running back depth is another hot topic. Around the league, teams are leaning toward younger, cheaper backs who can fill multiple roles rather than sticking with veterans who carry heavier contracts. The Broncos could adopt the same philosophy, especially with Payton wanting to keep the offense explosive and unpredictable. The buzz suggests that there could be one or two surprising cuts if younger backs outperform expectations in training camp. Remember, Payton isn't sentimental, he's about production. And if that means a bold decision to elevate a rookie over an established name, he will not hesitate. And let's not ignore the legal and off-field issues that have been shaking up rosters elsewhere. While Denver has done a good job keeping a clean locker room culture under Payton, he's watching how other teams deal with these distractions. One thing is clear, this coaching staff has no patience for anything that could derail their Super Bowl push. That's why character evaluations are playing just as big a role as on-field performance right now. Broncos country, this roster is being shaped to compete not just for respectability but for a playoff run. Payton is playing chess while other teams are playing checkers. The question is, how bold will he be when final cuts come around? Which surprising names could be on the outside looking in if younger players impress during camp and preseason? And here's where things get even more intriguing. Broncos country. Sean Payton has shown throughout his career that he values versatility above all else, and that philosophy is becoming clear as the roster shapes up. Several players are being evaluated not just for their primary position, but for how many roles they can fill on game day. This is crucial because injuries are inevitable over a 17-game season, and Payton wants players who can plug multiple gaps without needing to shuffle the entire lineup. That's why you're seeing a lot of emphasis on special teams performance during camp. If you can contribute on coverage or return units, your chances of making the final 53 increase dramatically, even if you're a borderline depth player at your primary position. Now, let's talk about the offensive line. This is an area where Payton is not messing around. He knows that protecting the quarterback and establishing a dominant run game are the keys to everything else working. Word is that some young linemen are impressing enough to push veterans for roster spots. Payton wants athletic linemen who can move in space, execute pulling blocks, and handle the kind of creative offensive schemes he loves to call. If that means moving on from a familiar face who doesn't fit the system perfectly, don't be shocked. Payton is building this line to be aggressive, physical, and relentless in both pass protection and run blocking. Wide receiver depth is another battle to keep an eye on. Training camp buzz suggests that Payton is demanding precise route running and consistency above flashy athleticism. With the quarterback situation improving, timing and chemistry are everything, and he's not going to keep receivers who can't be exactly where they're supposed to be on every snap. Expect one or two tough decisions here, especially if younger players keep flashing potential. Payton has always been willing to roll the dice on youth if it means long-term growth for the offense. Defensively, the linebacker group remains a fascinating storyline. The league-wide trend is to move away from traditional heavy-hitting linebackers in favor of hybrid players who can cover tight ends, chase running backs sideline to sideline, and still deliver in run support. Denver is no different. Expect Payton and defensive coordinator Vance Joseph to prioritize speed and coverage ability over size, which could push some veteran linebackers with more traditional skill sets to the edge of the roster. Special teams, again, will be a deciding factor for those depth players. The secondary also can't be overlooked. Payton knows the AFC is loaded with elite quarterbacks, and he's demanding defensive backs who can handle complex coverages and communicate flawlessly. Younger corners and safeties are getting extended looks, and some veterans might be forced to fight for their spots if they don't adapt quickly to what Joseph is installing. The defense is being built to create turnovers, and that requires aggressive, instinctive playmakers. So Broncos fans, with all of these position battles heating up, Sean Payton is clearly molding this roster for one thing: to win now while still keeping an eye on the future. The big question remains, will he make those bold, potentially controversial decisions to get the Broncos over the hump, or will he lean on veteran stability to keep things steady early in the season? And Broncos country, let me tell you, this is where things start to get really exciting. We are talking about a team that is being reshaped from the inside out, and Sean Payton is leaving no stone unturned. Every single rep in camp matters right now, and you can feel the tension among players fighting for their future in Denver. This is not just about filling roster spots. It's about building a team identity, a group that can finally return to being feared across the league. Payton has been very clear. He wants smart, tough, and disciplined football players, and anyone who doesn't fit that mold is going to find themselves watching from the outside, no matter how big their name might be. One area where Payton is showing his aggressive mindset is in how he's managing the defensive front. The Broncos want to generate consistent pressure without having to rely on heavy blitzing every down. That means finding pass rushers who can win one-on-one battles and defensive tackles who can collapse the pocket while still controlling the run game. Young players who show flashes of explosiveness and relentless effort are getting more attention than ever before. Coaches are spending extra time working with these younger guys, because if even one or two of them take that next step before the season begins, it completely changes the dynamic of this defense. But offense is still where most of the intrigue lies, especially with how Payton is designing his system around the strengths of his personnel. Word from camp is that he's experimenting with more motion and misdirection, forcing defenses to react and creating mismatches. That requires receivers and tight ends who understand the playbook perfectly, because timing is everything in these schemes. Veterans who can't adapt to this new tempo might be in trouble. At the same time, a couple of younger players are starting to make a name for themselves, showing great chemistry with the quarterbacks and proving they can be reliable in clutch situations. If that continues, expect some shakeups in the depth chart before the final cuts. And we can't overlook the running game, because Payton wants it to be the foundation of this offense. Physicality is the word you keep hearing from camp reports. This offensive line is being drilled to dominate at the line of scrimmage, and the backs are being evaluated not just on their running ability, but on their pass protection and receiving skills. A back who can stay on the field all 3 downs has a massive advantage in Payton's system. This could lead to some tough decisions if a younger player proves to be more versatile than a veteran who's been around for a while. Another thing that stands out is how Payton is demanding leadership from his core players. He's putting pressure on his captains and veterans to set the tone every day in practice, because he knows this team's culture is just as important as talent. You can sense that the locker room is buying into this mentality, and that could be the X factor this year. A united, disciplined team can go a lot further than a group of talented individuals who aren't on the same page. So here's the big picture. Broncos fans, this roster is being built for a serious run. Payton isn't just trying to make the playoffs. He's laying the foundation for a team that can compete deep into January. But that comes with big decisions, and some of them won't be popular. Players we're used to seeing in orange and blue might not be here much longer, and that's the price of chasing greatness. What do you think, Broncos country? Should Payton stick to his bold strategy?